The Sex Ed with Tim podcast is recorded on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands.
You're listening to Sex Ed with Tim.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Sex Ed with Tim podcast. I'm your host, Tim, a certified sex educator, your local chaotic homosexual. And Alysha, I have a question for you. Why can't you hear a psychologist using the bathroom?
Ooh, you're going to have to tell me.
Because the P is silent.
Amazing. Okay.
No. Awful.
We tried.
Honestly, ever since turning 31, I have fully embraced my daddy era.
Oh, that's fair. I love a dad joke.
The dad jokes, I feel like they're the backbone of society, to be quite honest.
Honestly.
They're the unsung heroes, the dad jokes, the unsung heroes of our city.
Absolutely.
So my beautiful chlamydiates, as I call my listeners, Alysha, my chlamydiate hive, the beautiful laugh that you hear on the other end of the mic is none other than a very beautiful, intelligent sex educator calling all the way from Vancouver, Alysha Somerton. Woo, woo, woo.
Hi.
Insert fireworks and smoke show and laser lights here. I know, nothing but production quality here on Sex Ed with Tim.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. And how about we start off with you telling a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Alysha. I use she, her pronouns. I am from the stolen territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations, otherwise known as Vancouver, in Canada. Yeah, so I am a queer woman. I am a sexual health educator. I am a youth worker. I am a queer and trans program coordinator. I'm a facilitator for sexual assault prevention and awareness. Yeah, so I have many jobs. I'm a very busy person. Yeah, that's a little bit about me. With my sex ed, I teach at everywhere from elementary schools to high schools, a lot of youth resources. And I also teach sex ed at different pubs and bars and things like that for adults as well. Because as I'm sure you know, a lot of adults are missing sex ed too.
Oh my God, please. Not just the adults, like the kids. It is surprising the amount of adults that I've encountered that are wait, a clit is supposed to do that? Mm-hmm. Wait, period is supposed to be this heavy flow or that flow? I'm yes.
Oh yeah. I feel like some of the kids, especially in high school and youth, they are more in the know because they're on the internet, they're on TikTok. But the adults are the people who really need it because they probably didn't get sex ed realistically. Not that we really got good sex ed, but...
Honestly, the sex ed I got, if I remember correctly, was this weird, poorly drawn cartoon. And it showed the stages of puberty. So different boob shapes were going rah, and then kind of, I know. And then it was squiggles of pubic hair and how it's supposed to get bushy. And I was yeah, but also I don't know if that's necessarily how bushy it's going to get to the point where it covers everything. Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah, not great. My sex ed was, I don't know if you've heard this, The Miracle of Life. It's the 1982 PBS production, and it was 60 grade 7s, so 12-year-olds. And we, the whole movie was okay. You saw the egg and the sperm combining and stuff. And then at the end, you see full baby coming out of the vagina. And are watching it with a bunch of 12-year-olds, and I actually got kicked out because I started laughing. Because they told us, they were like, if you laugh, you're going to get kicked out. So obviously everyone's trying to make everyone laugh. And this guy, bless his soul, right in front of me, he was like, this is the best/worst day of my life. The first time I get to see a woman's pussy, but I have to see a baby coming out of it. And I was like howling. So I had to leave. And yeah, that was my sex ed. Look at me now.
That is so wild. This is the best/worst day of my life. I love that.
It's like ingrained in my brain. I will never forget it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing it was like live action, no like animation or anything. Yeah, it was.
You saw everything. It was horrendous. I mean, like, it's not horrendous. Childbirth is beautiful and all of that. But why are we showing it to 12-year-olds? We don't need to see
No,
that.
exactly.
It's like fear mongering, being like, if you have sex, this will happen. Maybe that was it. I don't know.
No, it's totally that. It's like very mean. It's giving Mean Girls.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
We'll get pregnant.
don't have sex and die. I mean, you're going to die of other things, and it's probably not because of pregnancy, but like,
probably not.
I don't know. You're probably going to die because, I don't know, I'm tired of raising a kid or something. That's probably it.
Realistic.
My God. Yeah, so that is really wild. And I hate that it's still kind of like that today in the year of our Lord 2024. And that's Lord with an E, as in royals. So I remember this happened very recently, actually. It was just last Monday. And what happened was that I was teaching 4 different grade 9 classes. And I got to tell you, grade 9s, they're all over the place. It's a tough, it's a very tough year. And with an even tougher teaching staff to like help control the kids. And not just because it was controlling the noise level of the children, but also because they are still kind of stuck in their old school, old world ways of sex education. Now, there are exceptions. So what I mean by that is there was one teacher who was surprised that she didn't know what undetectable equals untransmittable means.
Mm-hmm. Most people don't.
They don't. And like, that's fine. However, I feel like now that we're in an age where, you know, sex education is so widely disseminated with the advent of TikTok, which also, please don't get your sex ed from TikTok, even though, you know, it may be accessible. Go to like your doctor or something or a clinic.
Unless
please
it's me on TikTok, then you can.
Unless it's me or Alysha, then yes, of course, come to us. You know, we're actually reputable at this and not just some content creator that likes to wax his butthole on camera. So yeah, like, with that one teacher who didn't know what U equals U is, we saw like her face kind of go like it was retreating in her shell, because what happens during our class is that we ask people a series of questions in a survey just to get their baseline knowledge of these different kinds of things. And then one of the questions was, have you heard of undetectable equals untransmittable? And then one student, while filling out the survey, audibly said, "What's this? We were never taught that." And then the teacher goes, Yeah, so that's wild. And then I had another teacher, the class after that, where she was like, it didn't even look like she was into helping us at all. So we were kind of leading the class and talking about all of the material, HIV, AIDS, PrEP, U equals U, et cetera, et cetera. And then at the end of the class, we would hand out the students a bunch of condoms and all these other materials, where to get tested and more about where to get PrEP and all that fun stuff. And then at the end of the class, after we've been talking about harm reduction and ways to have safer sex and just like very hard, what's the word I'm looking? We're not encouraging nor discouraging sex. We're just saying
sex
facts.
neutral.
We're very sex neutral. Exactly.
Yeah.
The teacher goes, "Don't forget that abstinence is the answer." And we're like,
Where were you? Were you not listening?
The entire time, because like she was there in the classroom. However, her mind was not there because she was busy grading papers, which fine, whatever. But also like, you missed the point of our entire seminar, our entire workshop. We're literally saying abstinence is not the answer. It's also been proven that when you teach abstinence only, you're only encouraging them.
Yeah, totally.
So,
and like
yeah.
my thing with like teachers in class, I get they are so burnt out. I do not know how teachers do it. Like I leave teaching in elementary school and I was like, I need a 4-hour nap, and like I don't know how they do it. But when we come in, a lot of the times teachers might just be like, okay, I get a break. This is amazing. But I'm like, no, you need to help me control these people. Like, I don't know how to do that as well as you do. So, yeah. And also they need to be listening. So when we leave, if they have more questions or things like that, they can, refer back to what we were talking about.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just the teachers. So actually, I'm coming in today in this recording just fresh off of teaching a class, and before the class starts we would normally hand out these consent forms because I don't know, I think there's an option for parents to pull their kids out of health class should they not agree with, or I don't know what it's like in other provinces, but here in Ontario, okay, yeah. So we actually had 5 different kids get pulled out of class. And then the teacher had to break the news to them that because your parents didn't agree to having you in this class, you are unfortunately going to get a 0 for, yeah. So, yeah. So I know it was a little like sad, but this is where I'm having trouble with empathizing because I understand that parents have the right to raise their kids in however they want. And we all come from different cultures and backgrounds. I understand that. However, I think that when it comes to your culture and your background being detrimental to the development of the child, such as avoiding talking about sex, I think we need to have a conversation there.
Yeah, totally. Like a big takeaway when I taught in elementary school recently is I had a lot of kids being taken out of my class, and a couple parents even called in asking if I was going to indoctrinate their children.
What?
Yeah. I mean, if you look me up, it says I'm a queer sex educator. So I wonder if parents are like, oh my God, she is going to teach. Like, I don't know. But I think this like narrative that's like quite dangerous now that's coming in more and more, like this anti-trans. I don't know what you use in Ontario, but we use SOGI, so sexual orientation, gender identity, which is taught in schools, which is basically like families can look different, blah, blah, blah. It's not like, here's how to do gay sex. But I think that parents and people probably look at that and are thinking that, and that's the kind of like information that's out there for them. Anyway, so yeah, I got a lot of kids that were pulled out of the class, and then I am walking to my car afterwards and I see the kids that were pulled and the kids that were still there, and they were talking about what I learned, what I taught them, but not telling them correctly. So I was like, your kids are still learning. They're just learning from a not good source, or they're going to learn from like the internet, which is extra danger.
Yeah, because they don't know exactly what to look up, right? Like they could, or I don't know, they could go on Google and search up, I don't know, erection, and it'll probably lead them down a rabbit hole of porn.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of up to us to help redirect their search engines. And it is quite funny when I heard one student, she was looking up all of these terms that we're asking for, because we were asking for things like, this is what it means when this is what it means when the viral count in your body does not show up on a test. So like basically her search engine was just like HIV, AIDS, undetectable, PrEP, unprotected sex, and immunodeficiency. And then I overheard her say, oh my God, my parents are going to see my search history and I don't know what they're going to think.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, most parents don't see their kids' search history, I would think, but I'm sure some do. Yeah, I hope. really.
Oh, God. Yeah. So, Alysha, I wanted to ask you actually, like, how you got into this, because it seems that you and I are very passionate about sex ed, and as we should be. I think everyone should be. But I wanted to get your story. What's your origin story?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to how not great my sex ed was, what we talked about earlier, I was, and also like being a queer person was left out of any sex ed that I got. Any sex ed I did get, even in high school, it was like penis in vagina, wear a condom, don't get pregnant, essentially. To give credit where credit's due, my parents were quite open in talking to me about sex. However, of course, it was just like penis and vagina sex for baby making. Yeah, so that was kind of the sex ed that I got. Wasn't great. And when I started being like a sexually active human, I realized that I didn't know anything. Little story, the first time when I was like 14, 15 kind of thing, I had my sexual debut with a boy. And it
With
was,
cabaret style debut. Dun, 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 dun.
Pretty much. It was awkward and like messy and not great. And I won't get into it, but it was not good. We were 14. It was like our first time doing anything. And I remember looking at him after and I was like, what's wrong? Because he just looked so disappointed. And I kid you not, this is what came out of his mouth. He was like, well, you just didn't do it like I thought you would. And I was like, okay, what do you mean? He was like, you didn't do it like a porn star. And that is what he said to me. And he wasn't even joking. He really meant it. And he was really disappointed. And I later found out, it was crushing. And I later found out that he had literally zero sex ed, like absolutely nothing.
Not surprising anyone.
Not surprising, of course. Literally had none. And so his sex ed came from porn, obviously. So his idea of sex was like this, entertainment from professionals. And here I am, like a 14, 15-year-old, obviously not that. So that was kind of what honestly sparked my interest a little bit, where I'm like, okay, this is how important this stuff is. And then, unfortunately, I had a few other not so great experiences growing up, as I'm sure we all have. And at the end of them, I'd be like, okay, clearly this person didn't get sex ed. Like, what are we? And I was so interested in it. I was like watching Hannah Witten. I don't know if you know who.
Yes, I know Hannah.
Yeah, of course you do. And so I'd watch like Hannah Witten on YouTube and I would like do my research online. And I was just like so interested in this stuff. And and then I just decided to become a sex educator. I wanted to like be the person that I didn't have and most of my friends didn't have. Yeah, that's kind of how I got into it.
That's great. And I kind of have like the similar story, but it really just was like one person rather than like a collection of experiences. And my story is a little different in the sense that like, I graduated college in business, specifically the music business. And I was just coming out of my stint as an escort. So yeah, like I was like trying to sunset my way out of escorting and then into business. But I was like, I really know a lot about sex, but I also know a lot about business. So I don't know where to go from here. Then I was on vacation in New York and my friend met me at a Starbucks and just like out of nowhere, unprompted, she goes, "Hey, Tim, you're gay. How do you have anal?" Okay.
Here we go.
Great. No, I wasn't even angry. It was more just like funny because like, how dare you assume, but also thank you for assuming because that is correct.
Yeah, you assume correctly. Yeah.
And then what turned out from one harmless little question became this sort of lecture in the middle of a Starbucks. And that was kind of the moment that lit a fire under my ass. And I was like, you know what? I'd like this. Use my business degree with my sex ed knowledge to combine it all together to become a sex educator. And here we are today.
Here we are.
Yeah, and it's so rewarding, especially when you see the kids, their eyes light up and then something clicks. I'll tell you what, Alysha, the most like eye-opening part in my like sex ed teaching, especially or specifically for the high schoolers, is when I tell them that there are actually some things in Canada that are illegal. And then, and what I mean by that is because they are 19. So what is that, like sorry, not 19. They're in ninth grade. They're like, what, 13 or 14 years
14,
old?
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Something like that. And then we talk about cyber safety, specifically sending nudes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We tell them, hey, did you know what? In Canada, if you're 17 or under and you distribute nudes, you are guilty of child pornography, even if you're a minor.
Ooh. Yeah. Oh my God. And everyone's face looks horrified in the class when you tell them.
Yep. They go like, what? So I feel like the kids who make that face or have that reaction are like guilty of it.
Yeah, totally. And it's like, we're not telling you so that you're like, don't ever do this and that kind of thing. But it's like, just to be aware, this is the law in Canada. Yeah, totally. I talk about that as well. It's an interesting one to get into.
I think it's important because like no matter what we as adults try to tell kids, chances are they're probably not going to like follow us when we say don't send nudes. They're not going to. So like no matter how illegal it is. So we're going to tell you, if you are going to send nudes, please do these. Use vanishing mode, no visible markings on your body, nothing to trace back to you. I was like, even, hey, you know what? Right? Harm reduction. Exactly. And then I would tell them something like, hey, you know what? Just as a life hack, Kat Von D full coverage foundation.
For tattoos, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, for tattoos, birthmarks, and scars, absolute lifesaver. The number of times where I've had to like, cover up something because I didn't want it being traced back to me. Yeah, it's great. So actually, I have seen some of my videos end up on the internet, and I'm like, oh, it's a good thing that there's nothing discernible in that connects it back to me.
Yeah, I have like tattoos all over. I gotta be a bit careful.
Right. I got like huge tattoos all over me. So I'm like, And also that video was like taken without my consent. So I was like, not great.
Yeah. But hey, well, whoever took that without your consent, if they had you teaching them, maybe they wouldn't have done that. Yeah.
I would have appreciated that. Yeah. And also, like in Canada, I don't know if you know this, but it's not just pictures, but also text and audio files.
Okay.
Audio files.
Okay.
Isn't that strange? So I was like
voice notes and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So if you send like, I don't know, a voice note or even like a recording that's going like, ooh, I'm so wet right now. And you're like 13 years old. That is considered child pornography. I didn't know that.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense. Like, that makes sense. But I actually have never taught that before. So thank you for teaching me today. That's good information.
My pleasure. Yeah, it was so strange. I was like, it didn't occur to me that audio or even just like text that describes an underage minor having sex is considered pornography. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, that is actually porn.
Yeah, totally. Like text messages and things like that. Like even like when I talk about like sending nudes and stuff like that, I'm like, I don't want to be like, don't do this because that's not going to do anything. So it's more like, just be aware of the risks essentially. And if someone ever sends you something, are we showing our friends? No. Even like, and they're like, oh, does it count if we don't send it to them, but we just show them? I'm like, yes, it does. But like, those are the questions they have. They're like, where can I find a loophole in this? So yeah, so important to talk about all that kind of stuff, which most teachers aren't talking about, of course. So that's why it's important to have sex educators come in who actually know what they're talking about.
Exactly. It's so sad. Like there was one supply teacher who went up to one of us after class and said, oh, it was great. However, I wasn't feeling how you were encouraging them to have sex. I'm like, did I say that?
Yeah.
What? Yeah. And she was very like old and wrinkly. So, and she was just a supply. So it seemed like she wasn't even there to be serious. However, I think that mentality is still very like, not great.
Yeah. Totally.
Oh, wild.
We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Yes.
What's up, all you sick fucking perverts? Don't you just love love? The Love Shop has everything you need to feel the love in the air or in between your legs, wherever you want, really. They've got everything from vibrators, lubes, lingerie, and even full-sized sex dolls. Wow, I guess love really does come in all shapes and sizes. Visit loveshop.ca/sexedwithtim and use code SEXEDWithTim at checkout for 15% off the whole store. And the best part is that they ship all over Canada, US, and what? Ireland? To all my whores in Dublin, top of the morning to ya. That's loveshop.ca/sexedwithtim and check out code SEXEDWithTim for 15% off the entire store. Now get to fucking. Do you like feeling sexy and looking sexy? Of course you do. Only my listeners are sexy as fuck. I have partnered with fetishwear designer Dale Kuda to bring you the hottest deals on custom jockstraps, harnesses, hats, and more. Head over to dalekuda.com, that's DALEKUDA.com, and use code SEXEDWithTim at checkout for 25% off the entire store. Yeah, you heard me. 25% off. And cherry on top, free shipping. Oh my god. I have a few of the stuff that he has made for me, and girl, I'm wearing it right now. I'm wearing like a little jockstrap so that I could easily just like slip a little butt plug or dildo every now and then here and there, and I'm on the train. I'm just like, thank you, Dale. That's dalekuda.com with the code SEXEDWithTim for 25% off your entire purchase with free shipping. With a deal like that, I swear I could come buckets, honey.
The show is about to begin.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, Alysha, about your experiences within teaching that you were like, that kind of like lit you up, or rather you saw your students and then they had kind of like this switch turn on, their light bulb moment. What are some of the more common things that you teach that give that reaction?
When I started teaching sex ed, I was a youth worker. So I was teaching at like a youth shelter program. And so I dipped my toes in that way, and I was teaching them about like, different STIs and things like that. And one of them put up their hand. They're like, can you teach us about periods? They're like, these are like 22, 23-year-olds who, have had experiences with homelessness. A lot of them didn't like finish high school, like things like that. And she's like, I don't know what it is. And was so brave at first to, say that in front of all of her peers. And no one laughed. And everyone else was like, yeah, I don't know how it works either. So I just stopped what we were doing. I'm like, okay, we got to go back to basics here. So I started teaching like young adults, the same kind of things I was teaching like my elementary school kids, obviously with different wording and things like that. But yeah, so I was teaching them like literally showing what a tampon was, showing how it works, what a pad was, that kind of thing. And it was, super rewarding to see that and to just kind of meet them where they're at. So I think with teaching, it's important to like not assume what they know too, because I don't know, we live in such a bubble, this like sex positive world. And even when I'm talking to some of my friends, sometimes I'll be like, oh yeah, and I'll say something like U equals U, and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, I have no idea. I was like, oh right. So yeah, just like some moments like that, and that are super sweet. Unfortunately, I have some like not so great moments when I'm teaching about consent, where I'm like looking at some of the kids in the class. I'm like, I think some of these kids are realizing that they were assaulted or they were in non-consensual situations. So that's like some of the tougher parts of our job for sure. But overall, it's like the most rewarding job, I think, truly.
I agree. One of my favorite moments is when they ask some questions that never would have occurred to me. And they come from such a genuine place of curiosity, but when I read them back, they're kind of funny. So, for example, we had this sort of panel discussion and the subject of periods came up, and one student was brave enough to ask us, the panel, in front of all of her colleagues of like hundreds of people and said, so like, is it normal to not have a period for more than a month? And I was like, that sounds not great.
Yeah.
However, you must be very happy you're not cramping up every month. However,
yeah. Sometimes it's like
great.
referring to doctors.
Yeah, exactly. And like, as someone who doesn't have a female reproductive system, I always direct that back to my colleagues who do. And it's just such a refreshing and frank discussion when they get into the biology and the science of periods. And like, you know what? Not having a period for 3 months is probably not safe. So you should probably go get checked. And then there's also other people who have a period for months back to back. And that's also not great.
Yeah, and then people taking different like birth controls, and then, you know, periods can get all out of whack and things like that. But yeah, totally. I think something too with like talking while we're on the period topic, when I teach, like, again, back in elementary schools, I expect when I'm like talking about periods and stuff that all the boys would be like, ooh, gross. But they are the ones that are the most interested. They have so many questions. They're so curious about it. And I talk about it in a way that's like, you know, if your friend is someone who's like on their period, be nice to her, like get her chocolate. And they're like, okay. So curious, like taking notes, like, okay, yeah, sounds good. I will. It's very sweet. And so, yeah, little moments like that I think are refreshing, because I think I have in my mind sometimes that they're going to be like, oh, that's so gross, but they're so curious and so open. Most of them anyways, of course. Some not so great ones, but yeah.
So that's a little note for the little straight boys that ever end up listening to this episode. If you're interested in a girl and she's on her period and you can see that she's cramping, get her chocolate, get her flowers, get her a tampon or a napkin or whatever.
Pay for it.
Pay for it, exactly. And trust me, that will get you so far. So, absolutely. I mean, don't do it because you just want to have sex with her, but also, like, you know, it is just nice.
Yeah,
it's just nice. Let me ask you a question that I received from one of the students, and you'll see what I mean when I mean like it's harmless but also really funny. There was a question that was asked, and it goes like, if I don't want kids, do I still have to have a period?
Aw. I wish we didn't. I know. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want a period anymore. I'm like, get them out of here. Like, I don't need them. Yeah.
How would you have answered that?
How would I have answered? Well, not unfortunately, I guess I would just be like, yeah, you know, our bodies are still going to work as if we are going to be able to have pregnancies and stuff. Unfortunately, we don't really have the option to not, unless we want to choose to like get on different kinds of birth control that might stop a period. So if you're interested in not having a period, you can talk to your doctor about that. And so, yeah, kind of talking to them about like different birth control options, because some of them can like stop a period altogether. I have lots of friends who've been on birth control since they were like in high school, and some are like, I have not had a period in like 4 years. And yeah, so they're like, you know, I want to get off it now to try and like figure out what my actual cycle is like. But there are options for people if they don't want it. Yeah.
So my question to you, as someone who is born male, is it actually normal, or rather sorry, it's not normal. Like, I know it's not normal, but rather, let me rephrase the question. Is it actually a concern, or a big concern, or rather, what is wrong? What is wrong when a person is not having a period on a regular basis, or rather having a period too much, like months back to back?
Yeah,
what's going on with their body?
A common, like, bunch of different, like, hormone kind of thing. Birth control is also a factor in it. Stress can be a factor. Sometimes being really stressed out can, like, delay a period, for example. Different birth control pills, different medication. Yeah, I'd say, to be honest, if you're, like, not in pain and if you're having it semi-regularly, it's probably not anything to worry about. But if you are concerned, go talk to your doctor, get your hormones checked, things like that. There could be something something wrong. And I always talk about too, like, periods shouldn't hurt that much. Like, yes, your uterus is contracting to shed the lining. So you are going to have some like cramping, discomfort, that kind of thing. But like, if it is stopping you from going to school, going to work, like doing anything like that, something is wrong. And there's like endometriosis and other things that people can have. So yeah, because I think we're like, raised or socialized to think that we're supposed to be in so much pain every month. And so a lot of people like ignore that pain, including doctors, ignore people's pain, especially women's pain. So yeah, that's what I talk about.
Great. Now I learned something today.
There you go.
That's awesome. Yeah, my friend, I took her to get a tattoo, and we were there for like an hour, and the entire time she was like, yeah, I'm cramping right now. This really hurts. But I was like, really? This is like, yeah, this tattoo feels like nothing. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Oh,
You're
yeah.
just taking it like a champ.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a thing too. Like, tattoo artists have said, they're like, when men come in, they're babies, not all of them. But but it's the women who are like, they're just like, oh yeah, like they're the ones falling asleep during a tattoo on their rib, but men are like crying over little ones. Not all men, again, but yeah, we're like so used to different like pain in our life, I guess.
Yeah. I'm like smack dab in the middle, or actually, not even in the middle. When it comes to pain, I'm very like all over the place. So for example, my tattoo, there was a time where I would just like, just like groaning in pain, and like a tear started rolling down my face. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, I like literally took a nap.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Same. I guess it depends where it is too. So if it's on the bone, it's horrendous.
Yeah, but getting a tattoo has exposed me to the fact that I am a pain slut. So
I know.
I love it.
Can I do another
I little
one?
like it. Yeah, I know. And I was like wondering why it was so addicting to get a tattoo, because like now I'm like almost at one tattoo per month. So it's a lot of money.
Wow.
But I know.
Yeah, no
I know.
kidding.
So I'm like reducing it to one tattoo a year. So thank God. But yeah, I was like wondering why it was such a rush. And it didn't occur to me until I was doing a little bit of research that like, oh, right, we're getting a huge dopamine hit so that our body can help combat that pain. And dopamine, right, and dopamine is what we all know as like the happy chemical that makes you feel good. So the dopamine mixed with the adrenaline is like very invigorating. And when the pain subsides, it's like, dopamine now goes down. And now we got to go back to that rush. So I was like, oh, I didn't know that.
Hey, that makes so much sense.
Right?
I have an
And
appointment for next month, so now I'm even more excited.
And like that's why a lot of people are very much into impact play, I found, because of the pain, it's the rush. It's also like, when you're in impact play, you are doing it in a safe environment. At least I hope you are, right? Like you're doing it in an environment where your partner knows boundaries and consent and safety and harm reduction tips. So yeah.
But a lots of control too.
Exactly. So as we transition from kids to adults, I wanted to ask you, and can you please talk a little bit about your sex ed trivia night?
So yeah, like we were saying before, a lot of adults have gotten basically no sex ed. And I noticed that with like conversations with people with sexual experiences. And I wanted to just have like a fun night for adults. So a couple of years ago, I started this sex ed trivia night where I come up with a bunch of sex ed questions. One being, what is U equals U? Pretty much no one gets it. Pretty much no one gets it every time.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Even the gay men in the room.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No. What?
I'm like, a few of you will know this, and then they don't. I know, it's shocking, but that's the thing. So then I like take a moment to be like, this is what this means, like, and talk about that. And I'll have like actual like birth control questions, questions about STIs, things like that. But then I'll be like, what was Pornhub's #1 most searched term last year or something like that? So they'll be like, it's a fun night. And I kind of turned it into also adding burlesque as well, or drag. So in between each rounds, we have like a burlesque dancer or a drag artist come and perform, and it's a lot of fun. There's like themes every time, and yeah, it's been really fun. I just went to a local brewery recently and had a big sold out show. So I'm hoping to do it in more places, and yeah, it's been so much fun.
Oh, I love that. I'm still kind of like locked in on the fact that gay men still don't know U equals U, which is strange to me because so much of HIV and PrEP campaigns are directed towards gay men. Even though like the narrative is shifting because now the most affected population for HIV and AIDS is Black women. So yeah, that narrative needs to start changing, and like not just gay men anymore. But anyways, that is so strange and interesting to me. But I also like the fact that you asked some Pornhubby questions, which is great.
I love their stats. Just came out the other day. I love looking at their stats at the end of the year. It's very interesting. And I get a lot of questions from there. So if you're listening and if you ever come to a sex ed trivia night, look at that. You'll know a bunch of questions.
Actually, I have the stats in front of me right now. Do you know what the number one search term is from 2023?
I actually haven't looked at them yet. I know what the most searched term for gay men is for this year. I think it's twink.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was twink. But I don't know the general one. What is it?
So actually, you know what? Yes, that is correct. So the number one search term on Pornhub gay is twink. And then the second one from that is anime. And then third one is Pinoy, which is Filipino. So I'm like, wow, okay, great to be a number 3 search term. Hello. But in regular Pornhub, the number 1 term is hentai.
I think it was that last year, or no, it was group sex last year. I think
was it group sex.
I think it was group sex, and then hentai, and then lesbian, which I don't know if it's a good or bad thing for lesbians, but
good or bad, yeah. For 2023, it's hentai, MILF, then lesbian is the top 3 searches.
Okay, we're still in there.
Yeah, so good on the women for being more represented in porn in very objectifying ways.
With their long nails, very unrealistic standards.
Yeah, I know. Or like in the hentai where it's just like a tentacle coming out of a girl and she's like, oh! Like,
yeah, I mean, not yucking anyone down. It's interesting to see like different stats per state as well in the States, which is, yeah, I don't know what those are this year, but
let me take a look actually. So the number 1 country that is on Pornhub is obviously the United States. And the second one down is the Philippines. So my people are very horny for, followed by, it's, I don't know what's causing us to get so horny, but sure. Good job on you, Philippines, which is actually number 3, or it went up 3 spots from 2022. So United States, Philippines, France, Mexico, the UK, Japan, Germany, Italy, then Canada.
Okay, so we're low on that list.
We're a little low on that. We all need to get a little more.
Our population is smaller, to be fair.
That's fair, but also like it's cold up here. There's not much that we can do other than fuck.
What else are we gonna do?
What else are we gonna do here, right? To answer your question about the states, the longest time spent, the state that spends the longest time on Pornhub is Maryland at 11 minutes and 31 seconds.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. So very interesting. Maryland, 11 minutes and 31 seconds. And the shortest is Louisiana at 8 minutes and 21 seconds.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
This is really interesting.
Yeah. The stats are so interesting. Even like they'll show on like Super Bowl day, you know, what times people weren't watching at what time. And yeah, it's very funny.
The favorite times are like 5 p.m., which makes sense because, you know, you finished work and then you want to blow off some steam.
Yeah.
And then the second highest time is at, Oh, I read that wrong. Never mind. 5 p.m. is the third highest.
Okay.
Second highest is midnight. First highest is 11 p.m.
Okay, that checks out. Right before bed. Like, how else are you supposed to sleep, you know?
Honestly, masturbating is one of my favorite pre-sleep routines. Like, I put on my face mask and everything and my lip mask and then masturbate. It's so relaxing.
And then just pass out right away. It's great.
Yeah, I feel like more people need to masturbate.
Pee after and then go to bed so you don't get a UTI.
Yeah, that. Actually, I have mastered the art of like masturbating to the point where I can only have the orgasm without the ejaculation.
Wow.
So I know it.
Impressive.
Thank you. It took a lot of practice, actually, and a lot of muscle control, and just knowing my body enough to like know which parts to simulate specifically, so that I don't like make a mess.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
And that's like something that I talk about in these like sex ed trivia nights and stuff. We give away like toys for prizes and stuff. And I'm like introducing people to toys for the first time. And they're
for the first time.
Oh,
wow.
So many people for the first time. If you ever come to my house, and any of my friends who might be listening, they're like, I'll come and I have this big bag and I was like, here's a show and tell. Look at all these things. You should buy this one. You should get this. I should be a sales rep for toys at this point.
We should.
Yeah. Shout out to the Enjoy. But
ooh, the steel wand. Ooh, yes, so good. I love.
You're like, is this a weapon?
Honestly, it could be. It's a weapon of ass destruction. I love that wand because it is stainless steel, which makes the perfect conductor for heat. So if you're ever into like temperature play,
or
so
cold,
good.
or cold. Yeah.
Making it cold.
And honestly,
so
it makes a good back massager, the one that's curved, which sounds ridiculous, but it just, I'm like, it gets the part of the shoulder where I can't normally get. 2 for 1.
Honestly, I feel like there needs to be more like tutorials on toy use, because with the advent of all these toys coming out, it's kind of hard to like know which toy does what. And here's my take on it. I don't think toys are going to care how you use them.
Oh, no. God, no.
Right?
Be creative.
Yeah. So it is very interesting. And I give pause when I get asked, Tim, how, or like, where do I start? What toy do I want? Or what toy should I use if I want to stimulate my clit or my nipples? And I'm like, literally all the toys. But then I have to be like, okay.
Start there.
Yeah, literally all the toys, right? But then I do have to like give them some recommendations. Like, okay, if you want some nipple stimulation, do you want to try a nipple clamp? Do you want to try just one of those pinpoint vibrators, right? So what are your toy recommendations?
Ooh. Well, Enjoy, already said, honestly, this is bad and I shouldn't even be recommending this, but this $30 like clit sucking toy from Amazon that I got like 6 years ago is like, I'm like, how is this still working? Truly. I don't think it's $30 anymore. That's one that I'm like recommending. It's the like Air Pulse ones. Those are like incredible. I know like anyone who I've recommended them to, they love it, except for a couple of people. So like for some people it doesn't work for them and for some people it does. So, and then other people have recommended ones to me and I was like, this sucks. I don't know how this works for you. But, and also just the classic Hitachi wand, you know, so the one that plugs into the wall, you can't go wrong.
And it's also so unassuming because the Hitachi Magic Wand I don't think it's originally meant to be a sex toy. However, because it's so powerful, like it's like the base level vibration of the classic is like 5,000 beats per minute, which is a lot.
A lot.
That's a lot. It's a lot to handle, but it's great. Oh,
Yeah, and
boy.
it can be used for like any body too, which is
Yeah.
cool too. Which I think like for a lot of folks with like a penis, they wouldn't think to go to like a vibrator, for example. But yeah, it can be used for anyone.
Yeah, it's very interesting that like this piece of technology has been so revolutionary. I was actually just writing an article of all about like the history of vibrators and how the vibrators used to be like this quote unquote cure for quote unquote female hysteria. So I can imagine all the women at the time, they were just like, oh, I have a headache. And then their husband's like, go to the doctor. Okay, whatever you say, my sweet husband.
There's actually a podcast that talks all about, I forget what it's called, Betwixt the Sheet, I think. But they talk all about like the history of the vibrator and things like that. And it's, super interesting.
I like that the reason that the vibrator was invented was not just because of the fact that it was known to cure, again in quotes, cure female hysteria, but because the doctors were administering this treatment, again in quotes, this treatment with their hands, and then they're like, you know what, my wrist is giving out, I need something more automatic. So like one of the very first prototypes for a vibrator was steam powered and a huge table.
Oh my gosh. Like,
Yeah,
no
can you
one can see
imagine?
my face right now, but it's horrifying.
Yeah, it's this huge. So just imagine like a huge table that would vibrate, like just in the place where the vagina would be, or the vulva rather, and then connected to that table is like the electrical power source that goes into the next room that is being run with coal and steam or whatever.
Oh my.
So it's loud.
Wow.
It's loud. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to look this up after. I'm excited.
Yeah. Search it
I'll
up.
go down some rabbit hole the next little bit.
Honestly, it's fun. And I actually went down a little bit of a rabbit hole when I went to New York in the Museum of Sex. And I never would have thought that one of the first handheld made for home vibrators was made by none other than Hamilton Beach, as in the kitchen appliance. Yeah. I know.
I mean,
what?
Amazing. I love that fact. That's a great fact. I'm actually going to use that as a question in my trivia.
Yeah. Hamilton Beach, the same people who made your blenders, your toasters, they also made the vibrator, like at least, back in the, 60s or something. But yeah, it is very strange. And let me see if I can like describe it for you, because it is like such an artifact looking thing where it almost looks like, I don't know, like how do you even call that? Kind of like it
looks like a sander. It looks like a handheld sander.
Yeah. It's so rough.
Oh
my, yeah, and then it's got like these different
a table or something with that.
Yeah,
wow.
And it's got like these different heads on it, like they're different attachments, which is great. I love a different attachment, but the engine itself is very like, it almost looks like it's a part of a car.
Wow. I mean, I wouldn't not try it, but. There's one on eBay.
Yeah. You can get it on eBay.
I'll get back to you.
Please do. It is very fascinating how like how the vibrator has evolved so dramatically. And one of my favorites is this sort of oh god, I'm gonna die. It's like this 2-in-1 kind of vibrator where the one end looks like a rose, like a literal flower.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then the Oh, so you've heard of it then. And then it's got a tail. It's got a tail, and on the end of that tail is like a curve that does the come hither motion. I was like, what? That's so cool.
Revolutionary.
Right?
To be honest, I mean, the ones that have like internal and external stimulation, I was like, I get the point. I think they're great. However, like not everyone's body is the same and like works in that same way. So it's kind of hard to like get the clit at the exact point and then get like the internal clit or like the quote unquote G spot stimulated at the same time. For some people, it might be amazing, but it's not like a one for everyone. However, if it's bendy, maybe that's the way to go.
I think so. And the beautiful thing about these kinds of toys, at least like this one I'm talking about, the rose, and then it's got a dangly tail, and it's like you don't have to use both of them. You can just isolate one part of the toy and then go on with your busy life. So I find that to be interesting. And I want to like encourage more toy use. I don't know how. I feel like, I don't know, if we make it like a game or something, that would be great, because so many people are so apprehensive when it comes to toy use, and they feel like they're broken because it's not like their body's not working correctly or whatever. But like, I think of a toy. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, especially like heterosexual couples, not to like, put them all in a box, but like, a lot of the time it's like, well, I literally had someone at my sex ed trivia. She won a vibrator and she gave it to her friend who didn't win because she's like, oh, I have a boyfriend. I don't need this. And I'm like, did you learn nothing today? And I was like, oh, I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. She's like, I have a boyfriend, so I don't need a vibrator. And I was like, does your boyfriend's dick vibrate? Probably not.
On demand?
Like, with different settings. I'm like, okay, you can use the vibrator with your boyfriend. Like, it doesn't have to be this like shameful thing that you do on your own. It's like, it can be something that's like integrated into sex. And I think when it comes to queer sex, we're already like outside of the quote unquote norm. So we're like, why not make this as pleasurable as possible? And here's all these fun tools we can use. Yeah.
And like, for those of you that see toys as quote unquote competition, it's not. Like, think of it as like your tag team partner in a wrestling match. Like, tag me in and then I'm gonna help you out. Or like, I don't know, the same way that visually impaired people need glasses is the same way how I need a little push every now and then with a toy. Like, sometimes a manual method is not gonna suffice. So
yeah, especially when we have that option. Why would we go back? I'm like, I could be lazy and just lie here. Why would I have to move my arm at the same time?
Oh my God. That's one of my favorites. So like, my favorite toy is this prostate massager from Aneros, where I literally just insert it and then the natural like puckering motion of my rectal muscles just massages it for me. And I'm like, yep, hands behind my head.
Good then
night. Smoking a joint, glass of wine in hand, letting it do its thing, and I'm just like, yeah, good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a big thing too. I'm like when I'm like teaching adults, I teach pleasure workshops as well, and it's kind of getting people to like unlearn the shame around like masturbation and pleasure and things like that. Like, I've had people in my life, like even as like my early 20s, friends of mine would be like, oh, I don't come when I have sex. And I was like, what? And they're like, well, I think you think it's normal because you sleep with women, so of course you do. But I sleep with men. I was like, no.
Wow. I guess there's still a lot to go. We've got a ways to go.
You're in such a bubble, and I think as soon as I step outside that bubble, I'm a bit shocked every time. It's like, ooh, that's why are we settling for that? Like, why are we having bad sex?
Yeah. Like, it is very strange to me because you and I, we live in a very certain reality where we're surrounded by fellow sex educators, sex workers, who all have the same attitude towards sex. We are very sex positive, sex neutral, and like, we're just like talking about fisting like it's the weather, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And then we step out of that reality and it's like, oh wait, this is actually how people think. I forgot about that. Like, I caught myself talking about getting my ass railed like a new railroad out on public, and then my friend was like, Tim, you're saying things out loud and people
We're
are
at
looking. I'm
brunch
like,
right now.
I know. I was like, oh shit. I forgot that we're in public, or some people are not comfortable hearing this. I'm like,
Yeah.
my bad.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Like, or even just like talking to new people about different like sex things, and showing people toys. And I was like, oh, you don't want me to like, you don't want to talk about this right now.
No, we don't.
Want to like
Well,
demystify it a little bit.
exactly. Well, Alysha, we are coming to the end of our conversation, and this has been so much fun. I love talking about sex with other sex educators. It is so great. And I was wondering if you want the listeners to take away at least one piece of advice from this episode.
Oh, wow. I mean, we were just talking about toys and vibrators. So go get a toy. If you don't have one, go get one. And if it doesn't work, a lot of places you can return it and get your money back. Try another one. And just my advice would be to like talk more openly about sex. Like, it might feel awkward and uncomfortable at first, but the more you talk about it with people, like, I think the happier and healthier and better sex life everyone's going to have, and we're all going to be quite thankful for it. Yeah.
Exactly. Masturbate more. Play with more toys.
Masturbate more.
Yeah. And remember to clean your toys before and after use. Please.
Absolutely. And look up how to clean them, because some are cleaned differently than others, you know.
Correct. Look at all the materials, whether it's wood, glass, silicone. Please always watch out for yourself. And before we wrap, and I never wrap anything, Alysha, can you please make... Yeah. Again, do as I say, not as I do. Can you please make like a butt and plug anything you want the audience to find?
Amazing. I am currently working on revamping my website, as I have said for the last few months, probably. So you can find me currently right now on Instagram is the main platform I use if I'm not shadow banned. It's just at Sex Educator Alysha, and it's ALYSHA on Instagram. And that's where you can find me.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Alysha, for coming on the show, and to all of my chlamydiots that made it this far into this chaotic ass conversation. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Sex Ed with Tim podcast. Please do not forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Please give us that 5 stars if you want, because you are supporting sex education content and queer content, gay content, and if you do not do any of that, that means you're homophobic. I'm sorry. I do not make the rules. Thank you for listening to another episode of Sex Ed with Tim, and we will see you at the next episode. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Sex Ed with Tim podcast. Sex Ed with Tim is created and produced by me, Tim Lagman. Music is Aces High by Kevin MacLeod. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at GaySlutClown and at Sex Ed with Tim. You can also like and follow me on the Sex Ed with Tim Facebook page. If you enjoyed the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for all your support, you dirty little slut. Mwah.